music's a little bit loud. I'm excited to be doing my live show today. I can't speak. It's the beginning of the live stream. Anyway, so I appreciate every single one of you. If you're watching this back as a video, guess what? Secretly, you're my favorite. Because not a lot of people apparently watch the videos after they're posted, which I think is rude. Nevertheless, let's get into all of it. So while we're waiting for everyone to jump in here, what are you all drinking as your morning beverage? I have coffee, and it's in my favorite mug that says "Peace, Love, Penguins." Okay, fun fact, if you did not know, penguins, actually, there's a lot of documented history that penguins have quite normal same-sex relations. And I think that's so cute. I think that's so cute. I love penguins because they're just happy little creatures. And apparently Trump tariffed a whole island full of them. But that being said, I love penguins. And what are you all drinking? Put it in the chat below. Also, if you're just scrolling in here, something I'm gonna start doing during my live streams is I'm gonna ask for you to describe how you're feeling in just 1 or 2 words. And I will be reading out some of those comments. I want to engage with you all a little bit more, but I also don't want to feed the trolls. So if you're watching this back as a video, I'm sorry. This is just for the live chat replay. In 1 or 2 words, how are you all feeling this morning? Just 1 or 2 words. Today, I am feeling reflective and attempting to be grateful, but also frustrated, but okay. So how are you all feeling? Just in 1 or 2 words. Coffee and orange juice? Yeah. Good morning, Cool Kells, Akicha. Oh, someone call me handsome. Thank you. In 1 or 2 words, how are you all feeling this morning? Hesitantly hopeful? Okay, that's good. That's good. In 1 or 2 words, describe how you're feeling this morning, and then we'll be getting into all the news here. Love from the UK. Thank you. It's crazy here in America, and I'm so sorry for what our country is doing all across the world. Being led by a madman. Oh, a whiny madman. Wow, no one's saying how they're feeling. Okay, I see how it is. But in 1 or 2 words, how is everyone feeling? Am I just not seeing comments by people? Or maybe they're just scrolling in and scrolling out. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe I should try to share the live as soon as I go live. Hold on. I just shared it with some people, so hopefully that helps. So I almost choked on my own spit. Y'all do that? Oh my God. Anyway, let's just go ahead and get into it all. So I appreciate every single one of you. In 1 or 2 words, just tell me how you're feeling this morning. Just 1 or 2 words. To me, I'm feeling grateful, or attempting to feel grateful, but also motivated. Because right now is a crazy time in American politics, and political burnout is real, but also something we need to tap into is the joy, the motivation, the excitement that comes along with pursuing justice. You know, it's easy for us to feel torn down by all of the craziness, all of the drama, the real injustices that are out there. But also, I think it's important for us to focus on the joy and seeing this as the plight of our lifetime, the fight for our lives, and we must pursue it further and do what we can. My job, I feel like my role in it is trying to promote critical thinking, promote empathy within politics, and I'm gonna do my darndest while I am here on this planet, while I am here in this existence, while I'm here in this timeline to do that. So, please comment below what you are drinking this morning as your morning beverage of choice, and just a couple words on how you're feeling. But now that it is about 4 minutes and 40 seconds, let's go ahead and get into the live stream. Please send some likes. It does help out the stream. I have a feeling that my page has been kind of lost in the algorithm, which really sucks. But nevertheless, we will do what we can. All right, it's almost the 5-minute mark. Here we go. Good morning, beautiful people. I hope you all are thriving, not just surviving. So Donald Trump seems to continue to have meltdowns regarding his tariffs, and not gonna lie, low-key kind of living for it. This guy is a malignant narcissist and suffers from narcissistic personality disorder. That all being said though, he is really, really not having a good time with this. And we'll talk about John Barron here in a minute. But I want to talk about tariffs really quickly. So some Trump apologists struggle to comprehend that Americans are the ones paying Trump's tariffs. So do you all know what a tariff is? Yes or no? Just put it in the chat here. Do you all know what a tariff is? It's so funny that this is where we are in American history, and I'm feeling very reflective this morning because if you all have been with me throughout the years over on TikTok and now over here on YouTube, if you all remember before the 2024 election, I was talking about tariffs endlessly over and over and over. Do you all remember when I used to do my TikTok live streams in my car and I would talk about tariffs? And a lot of people were like, tariffs, let's try something new. Or, oh, tariffs, it's not that bad. Do you all remember that? And I would actually break it down saying this step by step is what's going to happen. Lo and behold, here we are. Here we are. And the tariffs have basically skyrocketed prices for American consumers, where the businesses don't want to lose money, so they pass on the higher prices to consumers. You think businesses are going to swallow a profit margin? Absolutely not. That's not how they work. They have responsibilities to their shareholders. So they're not going to swallow up the loss. They have a fiduciary responsibility to make as much money for their investors and shareholders. So I was talking about tariffs before it was mainstream, and it's crazy that it's basically come around to this moment. But a lot of Trump apologists seem to have this idea that other countries, foreign countries, pay tariffs. Let me dispel a rumor really, really quickly and just end a little brain fart right now. Foreign countries don't pay tariffs. They don't. A tariff is a self-imposed tax on imported goods. So if America puts a tariff on imported goods, it is American businesses, small businesses, American citizens, importers that pay the tariff. It is not China paying America a tariff. So the idea that Donald Trump is somehow claiming we're getting so rich off of the tariffs. Hold on. We're getting so rich off of the tariffs. And it's fantastic and it's incredible. We're making so much money. We're making these countries pay the tariffs and we're going to be in the golden age of America. That's not how it works. It is American citizens, businesses, and importers paying the tariffs. But I truly don't understand if Fox propagandists or far right-wing media propagandists know that, or are they just dumb? Because many Trump apologists are struggling to comprehend that Americans are the ones that actually pay the tariffs. And of course, this coincides with the fact that Donald Trump has endlessly said that other countries pay the tariffs, but that is legitimately just not how it works. That is not how structurally it works. So on Friday, the Supreme Court issued a 6-3 decision nullifying a large part of Trump's tariff policy agenda. Now, if you're like, okay, what does the word nullifying mean? It basically means get rid of or invalidate or disqualify. So, on Friday, the Supreme Court issued a 6-3 decision nullifying a large part of Trump's tariff policy agenda, finding that he had exceeded his authority by imposing tariffs on dozens of countries around the world. In its ruling, the Supreme Court made clear, quote, the power to impose tariffs is very clearly the branch of the taxing power, and that Trump had far overstepped his legal authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act by imposing these taxes without prior authorization from Congress. Okay, here's a quick little civics lesson for you all. You all know that there are separation of powers, meaning each branch of government has their own roles and responsibilities. So you have Congress, that's the House of Representatives, that's the Senate. One of their main powers is, of course, passing legislation, but also they have what's known as the power of the purse. It is up to Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate to dictate taxation policy or tariff policy or the branch of the taxing power. That's Congress. Now, it's up to the executive branch, the presidency, the heads, the cabinet, heads of agencies. They're the ones that institute those policies passed by Congress, implemented by Congress. They have their own discretion, limited discretion, on how those policies are carried out, but they cannot necessarily impose what Congress has to do on their own. So what the Supreme Court is saying, yeah, the executive branch has gone too far trying to legislate or trying to impose taxation power. That is actually the responsibility of the legislative branch. And if the shoe was on the other foot and this was a Democratic president, I would say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If it was a Democrat constantly doing these tariffs, overstepping Congress's authority to do their job, then yeah, it would be a violation, in my view, of the Constitution. Now, what the Supreme Court is saying is that they need, the executive branch needs prior authorization from Congress. So let's say that Trump decides to go to Congress and say, hey, can you get me my tariffs on a fast order, please? Let's get the tariffs. Can you pass the Mike Johnson? Mike Johnson, can you get me the tariffs? Pass me the tariffs and then I'll implement it. Yeah. So if Congress decides to pass these tariffs, then there would be no issue. So this isn't about saying that Trump's tariffs themselves or the substance behind doing a tariff is somehow wrong. It is the way that Donald Trump went about it by trying to impose it unilaterally through executive authority instead of seeking congressional approval to do so. Now, if some of that went in one ear and out the other, the basic summary is the Supreme Court said that the executive branch, the president, was overstepping his role, the executive branch's role and responsibility, because it's up to Congress to dictate taxation policy, the power of the purse, and whether tariffs are to be collected. In some limited scope, in some limited fashion, the executive branch can impose tariffs. But the way that Donald Trump went about it, without seeking prior authorization from Congress, is the main reason why the Supreme Court said, hey, buddy, you're kind of going too far. That all being said, of course, Donald Trump cannot comprehend or understand any sort of intelligent thoughts whatsoever, and he decides to have instead a complete meltdown. And let me just tell you what that meltdown really consisted of. I talked about this yesterday. Though Donald Trump, he... This just cracks me up, okay? So, when a whining, petulant toddler doesn't get their way, they will whine, they will scream, they will kick, they will do everything in their power to basically create a whole manic moment in order to get what they want. When bullies attempt to try and get what they want through force, you stand up to them and say, no. This is what Donald Trump has always done. It's a part of privilege where you can whine your way into getting whatever you want. In this case, the whiny, petulant toddler Trump wants to break as many laws as he wants or break the Constitution as much as he wants, disavow American government and policy and play dictator as much as he wants. But it's up to us as Americans to say, hey, buddy, okay, is someone needs a Snickers bar because you really are having a moment, aren't you? You know, I just want to give Trump a Snickers bar because he needs to go from Trump to Betty White, okay? But Trump has a complete meltdown over this 6-3 ruling saying that the executive branch has gone too far in imposing these tariffs because they hadn't sought prior authorization from Congress. So what does he decide to do? He goes up to his old tricks and he decides to call in to C-SPAN under the alias John Barron to rage about this ruling. Now, question. Did you all know, and you can say so in the chat, yes or no, did you all know that in the past, Trump has used several aliases to call into and issue like letters to the editor to disguise his identity to influence public media? Were you all aware that Donald Trump has used aliases to have opinion pieces or letters to the editor, or done this as a way of pushing the public? If you are, say yes. If you haven't heard about that, say no. But if you all did not know, Donald Trump throughout the 80s and 90s used several different pseudonyms, aliases, in order to miscellaneously appear in public media without saying that it was him, in order to push a certain narrative. And one of his aliases is John Barron. So he recently, after this Supreme Court ruling, got so enraged that he calls into C-SPAN as John Barron and rants about how this is the worst thing in American history. Of course, naturally. And it's so funny because I'm not going to play the clip for you all here on live, but you can hear in his voice, it's clearly him. It's clearly him. And this is what he says. "This is John Barron. Look, this is the worst decision you've ever had in your life. Worse than that tattoo, worse than crashing your car. This is the worst decision. And I say it plainly, I say it clearly. You've never heard me stumble anymore. You've never heard me stumble. Never heard me stumble. And Jack's gonna agree with me, right, Jack? I see you, Jack over there. Jack and I are tight, muchachos. We're tight muchachos, and Jack's gonna agree with me, right? But this is a terrible decision. This is a terrible decision, and you have Hakeem Jeffries, who, he's a dope. He's a dope. I couldn't think of a better word. I just said dope. And you have Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger." Why in the world does he go in to be like, Chuck Schumer can't cook a cheeseburger? That's just the funniest thing. I should go over to Chuck Schumer's office and I'd be like, "Hey Chuck, can you cook a cheeseburger? This is the ultimate American test." "And Chuck Schumer, who can't cook a cheeseburger, cook a cheeseburger. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy. You know, true Americans, there's a difference between the Americans that I call the enemy from within and the Americans that vote for me, because the others that don't like me, they're the enemy from within. The enemy from within. And you have a woman earlier. I assume she's a woman. You know, I like to assume that a lot of people are women. You know, a lot of women love me. I assume she's a woman. She's a Democrat, but she's devastated by this." Calling in as a pseudonym to complain. This man, this petulant child, really thinks that he's so not heard. Yet he is undoubtedly the most heard person on the planet, especially in America. So for the president to phone in to C-SPAN like this, it's just pathetic. It's just sad. It's so sad. This man is an unhinged narcissist. Anyway, but this unhinged narcissist has real issues, real policy substantive issues for America. And what's also funny is if you go to Wikipedia, there is a whole Wikipedia page about this, the pseudonyms used by Donald Trump. They include, of course, John Barron. They include also John Miller, Carolyn Gallego, David Dennison. So he's used all of these pseudonyms in the past, especially in the 80s and 90s, to phone into radio interviews or opinion pieces published in newspapers to steer public opinion. And he used David Dennison when he was with Michael Cohen in covering up the whole thing with Stormy Daniels. But my favorite is Carolyn Gallego, which, by the way, Gallego actually, in northeast or northwest Brazil, it's known that the term gallego means a blonde person with white skin. Now, I don't know if Trump applies for that because his skin is a lot more orange, but but it's interesting because this is what Carolyn Gallego wrote in 1992. Based on the fact that I work for Donald as his secretary, and therefore I know him well, I think he treats women with great respect, contrary to what Julie Baumgold implied in her article. I do not believe any man in America gets more calls from women wanting to see him, meet him, or go out with him. The most beautiful women, the most successful women, all love Donald Trump. When you break down Donald Trump's speech patterns, there are some very key elements here. The way I do my Trump impression, it's you repeat yourself with just slightly different words. The best words, the greatest words, words you've never seen before. So you repeat the same idea, just slightly in different terms. Also, it's the pause in the middle of the sentence. Based on the fact that I work for Donald Trump as secretary, and therefore I know him well. Just the comma and then the comma, or the dash, and therefore I know him well. I think he treats people with great respect. He uses the word great a lot, contrary to what this person believes. And then goes into praising him. I don't believe any man in America has gotten more done or more calls from women wanting to see him or go out with him. The most beautiful women, the most successful women, all love Donald Trump. So it's so clearly him. And what's also funny is that at one point in court, he had to stop using one of these aliases. He had to stop using one of the synonyms. Hold on. So where was it? Yeah. So Trump stopped using the synonym after he was compelled to testify in court proceedings that John Barron was one of his pseudonyms. So these courts were like, bro, you gotta stop. Okay, this is insane. You gotta stop this shenanigans, the tomfoolery. But you get the gist. You get the gist that he has a complete meltdown over these tariffs. And it's so funny because this person put this out there, I'm John Barron. Or this one, John Barron, John Miller, and David Dennison. They're all Trump. Though, I'm gonna jump back to talking about tariffs here for a minute. So, he's having this whole meltdown around tariffs. Do you all know what a tariff is? If you do, say so in the chat. If you don't, then say no. I should say, do you all know how to define a tariff? You've probably heard the word tariff, but do you actually know what it is and how they work? If you do, say yes. If you don't, say no. Because I'm going to actually tell you how tariffs work. I've been talking about them ever since 2024 election, when that was a key part of Trump's presidency. To start with, I was talking about it back when I did my live streams on TikTok in the car. I would give example after example of how tariffs work and how costs are passed along to consumers. And guess what we see today? So, do you all know what a tariff is and how to define it? Or have you like, oh, I just know of the term, but I don't actually know what it is. I know that they're bad. I'm here to tell you what tariffs are. And by the way, I have the chat really hidden away, so I'm gonna quickly look at it. No, is it a tax on goods imported? Yes. That's pretty much what it is. Also, just if you're jumping in here, say a couple words on how you're feeling this morning. I wanna make the chat more active. I wanna filter out the garbage trolls and bots and stuff like that, but I want people to be more active. I am gonna try to read out chat more often, because I think part of the reason why chat may have been a little bit slower is because I don't often see them sometimes. But yeah, tariffs are tariffs are on American consumers. Yes. Yes. Rough week though? Aw, well, I hope you feel better. Yeah, I hear you. So, what is a tariff? Let me break down what tariffs are and how they work. So, Trump has this idea that foreign countries pay the tariffs. That is objectively not true. Foreign countries do not pay tariffs. Tariffs are taxes. It's a self-imposed tax on imported goods. Self-imposed meaning American politicians are putting taxes on our own businesses, on our own importers. So let's say that you have a car manufacturer and you need steel, and you get steel from a foreign country, or not America, and you put a tariff on that steel. It's not the other country paying for that. It's the American consumer, it's the American business paying that tariff. Tariffs are self-imposed taxes on imported foreign goods or parts. So, short answer, American importers and usually the American consumers pay the tariffs, not the foreign country directly. So Trump is basically, and not a shocker, lied over and over and over and over and over, claiming that foreign countries pay the tariffs. That's not how it works. Foreign countries, China, India, Mexico, Canada, they don't pay the tariff. A tariff is a self-imposed tax on imported goods. The people who pay the tariff are the American businesses, importers, and consumers. Now, I'm all for taxes on businesses because I think they make up a huge amount of revenue. But the way that tariffs are done is they pay more. Well, guess what? Because they pay more to produce the good, they're gonna pass that price along by charging you more for the end product. So that's how that ends up working. So what is a tariff? A tariff is a tax imposed by a government on imported goods. It's a self-imposed tax on imported goods. For example, if the US government places a 25% tariff on steel from another country, that tax is collected by the US government at the border. So who actually pays? The American company that imports the product pays the tariff to the United States government. For example, a US company imports washing machines from South Korea. The US places a tariff on those imports. The US company pays the tariff when the machines enter the country. The foreign government does not send a check to the US Treasury. So South Korea is not paying the tariffs. It is a self-imposed tax from the American government to the American business and the American consumer. So economically, it usually gets passed on to the end retailer or the end consumer. What it ends up doing is it raises prices for consumers and retailers. So American consumers end up paying in higher prices. So let me give you some examples. If you order a $100 jacket from another country and the US adds a 20% tariff, the US government is charging $20 more to the US importing company. The company now is like, well, if we're gonna have to pay a tariff of $20, we're just going to say, let's just charge more for the product. They're going to pass that along. See, corporations, businesses, they don't want to lose their profit margin, their revenue. They don't want to do that. I work in some capacity where I understand this. These shareholders that have investments, they have a fiduciary responsibility. The business is like, oh, well, we don't want to lose revenue, so we're just going to pass that along to the consumer. So what tariffs basically do is they raise the price ceiling for everything. This is why inflation continues to go up. This is why it's spiraling out of control and things are becoming more and more and more expensive. Because what tariffs do is it's an artificial inflationary tactic where, okay, if you're importing a jacket from another country and the United States imposes a tariff on that jacket, that means that the American company importing it is going to pay $20 more. But that company is like, ooh, we don't want to swallow that loss, so we'll just charge the consumer more. So they charge the consumer more. And now that $100 jacket is now $120. The business is not going to swallow the profit loss. They're going to say, too bad, you're just going to have to pay more. Everyone then has to pay more. So the foreign government didn't pay that $20, the importer did. So another example, during tariffs imposed under Donald Trump, washing machines into the United States faced tariffs up to 20 to 50%. So an example, imported washing machine cost is about $500. With a 20% tariff, that's plus $100. So the new cost to the American importer is $600. So the retail price before the tariff was about $650. So their profit margin was $150 per washing machine. With doing this tariff of 20%, now they're going to pay $100 more. Well, they want to keep the same profit margin of 150% per se, so they're going to charge $750, maybe a little bit less, for that washing machine. So what it does is it basically raises the ceiling for what is a normal price. Now you're like, well, why in the world would the American government do that? The idea, the theory behind tariffs is that, when you have tariffs imposed on goods coming from other countries, what's going to happen is domestically made products or goods or parts are going to become more affordable by comparison. So the idea is, okay, well, we're not buying steel from China, we're buying steel made in America. Sure, I think that's a fantastic idea. That's the genuine idea behind tariffs. What happens in actuality? Well, corporations are going to want the cheapest possible thing. So you're like, oh, well, they might go for the domestically made thing. Or domestic manufacturers might also see an opportunity to increase their own profit margin. They're like, oh, well, they're paying this much for foreign steel. Maybe we'll just raise up to just be a little bit beneath that because we'll be the cheaper one by comparison. But what it does is it basically raises the threshold for what prices are for everyone because domestic manufacturers see it as an opportunity to increase their profit share. So if you have a domestic steel company, they say, oh, well, they're paying 20% more for a tariff steel. Why don't we just do it like, we'll raise it by 15% and then we'll remain competitive. But that then increases the prices for everyone all around. So, and then consumers often get the short end of that stick. Does that make sense? So, why more than $700? Retailers often keep their percentage margin, not a flat dollar amount. So the markup grows too. Studies found that washing machine prices rose about 12%, and even dryers, not tariff, increased because companies raised prices broadly. Exactly my point. So another one, steel. Steel tariffs affect products that use steel, of course. Let's say that US car manufacturers buy imported steel. Steel cost per car is $1,000. 25% tariff adds $250. So the new steel cost per car is $1,250. Even though the tariff isn't on the car itself, the manufacturer passes some of the cost to the dealerships. The dealership says, ooh, we don't want to lose our profit share, our percentage earned. We don't want to have it cut into our profits, so we'll just charge consumers more for it. So if the car originally cost $30,000, the new price might rise by $300 to $800 depending on competition. Or clothing. So let's say clothing has multiple markups in the chain. An imported jacket, wholesale cost is $20. A 25% tariff is an addition of $5. So the new cost to import for these American companies to then sell foreign clothes becomes $25. It's not the foreign company paying the tariff, it's the American retailer and importer. Now, before the tariff, let's say that it was a $40 markup. So the imported jacket cost $20. They said, okay, we're gonna sell it for for 40 so that we can account for labor, we can account for facilities management, but then have some left over. Well, after the tariff, they say, okay, well, we're paying more for the jacket, so we're going to charge more for the jacket. So the consumer pays $10 more, even though the tariff was only $5. You get my gist. Example after example after example. Well, you're way smarter than anyone in the far right-wing media propaganda space, because these silly imbeciles think that somehow foreign countries are the ones paying the tariffs. They somehow think that it is China or India or Canada or Mexico paying the tariffs. I just highlighted how that is objectively not the case. You have people like Megyn Kelly. So are we going to get sued by other countries? Is that who's going to sue us? I want a refund of all the tariffs I paid to the United States. Megyn Kelly, tariffs are not paid by other countries. A tariff is a self-imposed tax on imported goods. And this is just sad. You have people that work in news media. They really are just propagandists, but they work in news media and they don't even know what they're talking about. It's scary, but also it's just humiliating for them. And her guest was like, no, it's actually the people who paid the tariffs. Remember, the United States citizens and the importers. It's not the foreign countries that pay it. Or Harris Faulkner says, if some of these countries want their money back, what does that look like? It's like, the foreign countries didn't pay the tariffs. China doesn't pay the tariffs. India doesn't pay the tariffs. Mexico and Canada don't pay the tariffs. It's the United States citizens that do. Yet, where they're getting this all from is Donald Trump saying, despite the massive amount of money being made in the United States, hundreds of billions of dollars, direct results of the tariffs charged to other countries. It is not China giving us the money. You idiot, you imbecile, you fool! Ugh, jeez. Yet, Trump is so mad because his tariff ruling got struck down by the Supreme Court. So much so that he went into an absolute rage by using one of his pseudonyms to call into C-SPAN to complain. Yes, if you did not know, Donald Trump has used several aliases or pseudonyms to complain in the past, including John Barron, John Miller, David Dennison, and Carolyn Gallego. You know what? It's interesting. He wanted to impersonate a woman to talk about how Donald Trump is beloved by women. I thought that was just funny. but it's when listening to that C-SPAN moment where he impersonates, or I guess is John Barron. He said, "This is John Barron. Look, this is the worst decision you've ever had in your life, practically. And Jack, you agree with me, right? And Jack's gonna agree with me. You agree with me, Jack? Yes, Jack. Jack's amazing. And you have Hakeem Jeffries, who, he's a dope. You have Chuck Schumer, who can't even cook a cheeseburger. Goodness, now I'm starving. Now I want McDonald's, yum yum. Of course these people are happy. But true Americans will not be happy." I think Americans in general will be happy because these tariffs impact everyone. By the way, these tariffs don't discriminate based on your political affiliation. So Republicans, by the way, you are affected just as much as any liberal or woke person with a nose ring and blue hair by the tariffs. We're all in the same boat together. We're all in the same same country of America. So the fact that all these Republicans are like, haha, liberal tears over the tariffs, you're paying more for shit too. So your idea of owning the libs is making liberals upset by charging everyone more, which puts you in some sort of financial hardship as well, but somehow that's more worth it. Like, that's what psychopaths and sociopaths do. But you get my gist. So the whole internet was clowning on Trump for basically impersonating John Barron for phoning into C-SPAN. And I just want to get to some of these comments here because this just gets me. So there definitely is a style there, isn't there? I'm sure I've seen phrases like that before. I just can't put my finger on it. Mr. and Mrs. Mar-a-Lago Gallego. are pleased to announce the engagement of their daughter, Carolyn, to Mr. John Barron of New York City. Or the whole internet basically trying to find Carolyn Gallego, and it's the little cat doing that. Can't stop playing childish games, of course. You know, when you elect someone like Trump, you're gonna get that. In Melania's case, Barron was conceived by John. Get this man out of the presidency right now. All he is doing is destroying what everyone has built. All right, John, Bronner said, cutting off Barron after 32 seconds. Yeah, in that C-SPAN clip, you had the anchor cutting off John Barron, and I thought that was great. I'm David Dennison, and I agree with the last caller. Imagine if someone had called right after, or Trump had basically called right after under another alias. That would have been so funny. And you all get my gist. What do you all think? By the way, I'm currently editing yesterday's live stream into a video so that I can post that as like a 17 minute video in general. I was having trouble downloading my live stream yesterday. So I appreciate y'all's patience on that. Someone said, "You're gay, bruh." Yes, I am. Thanks for noticing. But speaking of noticing, maybe you should notice some grammar, because that is the wrong "your," bucko. That's the wrong "your," friend. If you want to use "your" like that, that's to show possession. If you want to say "you are," or "you are" like YOU''RE, that's the one you're looking for. Just saying. MAGA heads are interesting people. Yeah, seriously. If they can afford it, you think they care for real? Yeah. They are the same people who rag on people relying on government while also complaining about retirement age and Social Security. 100%. 100%. But, yeah. Yeah, what tariffs do is it basically just hikes prices. And think of it business-wise. If you put a tariff on a good, the business isn't going to swallow the cost. They're going to say, okay, we'll just charge more for this. Because businesses have a financial fiduciary responsibility to their shareholders, to their investors, to make revenue, to increase profit margin at whatever cost in some capacities. Businesses' main thing is to make money. And if they make money by charging more, then they're gonna do it. In some capacities, you could argue that businesses are unethical businesses can be very unethical because their main profit or their main motive is just trying to garner profit. Now, you could say, well, it's garnering profit for that business so they can pay their employees. Sure. Or just their CEO, or their top shareholders. And this is where I, in the background of sustainable development, talk a lot about externalities. So what tariffs do is it is externalizing and making everyone pay more for products, making the burden on the consumer. And so I hope that my explanation of tariffs really helped people. After 6 months out of work, you're off the list. About 68% of people are unemployed. What? What in the world? You got some weird people in here. Anyway, but I'm probably going to be ending the live a little bit earlier today because I need to get to work a little bit earlier and finish editing a video. But I appreciate all of you. What did you all think? Is that anti-American propaganda behind you? LOL. No, this is this is simply. So I was explaining earlier, and I'll just cover it for you. In case you're a good-hearted person that genuinely wants to know. So Donald Trump recently phoned into C-SPAN to complain about the Supreme Court overruling his tariffs. and he phoned in under the guise of the pseudonym John Barron, which is a well-known pseudonym for Donald Trump that he's used in the 80s and 90s. And so he said, this is John Barron, calling from Virginia. This is the worst decision. And if you go and watch the C-SPAN clip, which I highly encourage you do so, it's clearly Trump's voice. It's clearly Trump's voice. If he really wanted to try and like hide his identity, he could have used some sort of voice, like, voice adjuster, modulator, whatever, or used a different name. Like, but he used a name back in the 80s and 90s that he's used. Even courts at one point said you gotta stop using, testifying in court that John Barron was one of his pseudonyms. They're like, yeah, dude, you really need to stop using that pseudonym. So the internet erupted with memes of like, this is John Barron, and it's just Trump with a mustache. Or another one of his pseudonyms was John Miller or David Dennison. So that's the idea. LMAO, I'm on my way home. I'll take a look. Yes. And I'm also going to be posting a video about it, hopefully before I go to work today. So I'm currently finishing up editing that, and I think it's probably going to be one of my best videos of all time. Yeah, I appreciate every single one of you, but I'm going to skedaddle. I love all of you. I need to get to work, but I'm also going to finish editing that video. If you all enjoyed today's live stream, then please make sure to smash that subscribe button. I work super hard trying to do this live stream, and right now, I had a moment yesterday, and this is just personal housekeeping stuff. I had a moment yesterday and I became really frustrated. Because I'm working super hard on trying to eliminate filler words or use speech patterns that are easy to understand. And I don't think that my live is getting the reach, and maybe I don't think it's getting the reach that it deserves. I'm trying to inform and educate people using critical thinking, breaking stuff down, and it just sucks because I don't feel like it's, I know it's being heard by some, but I don't feel like I'm getting the biggest bang for my buck. And I'm trying not to feel like there's the Al Gore-ism against me. So I'm trying to figure out, what can I do better? What can I do better to like increase people's retention or get people interested? So if you all have any ideas at what would make my content better, maybe easier to watch, please let me know. I welcome very constructive feedback. Don't just ram into me like, you're a horrible person, blah, 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 blah. If you do have feedback, you're like, you know what, Scott, I like what you do. This is something that I think you should do more of, but then have you considered doing this? Please let me know. One of my biggest things I've been working on is eliminating filler words. But if so, like, for example. Also, when I'm on live, sometimes I stutter and I pause, and sometimes that can give an opportunity for someone to scroll away, and I'm trying to do my best to eliminate those things. Also, I think that eye contact is another thing that I need to work on. When I'm doing my lives, sometimes I'm looking away or up or down, and I feel like people really enjoy eye contact when I'm doing my live stream. And to me, eye contact is very vulnerable. So I'm working on that. But I appreciate every single one of you. I need to skedaddle. If you have any feedback, please let me know. Put it in videos and this live when it's posted. I appreciate all of you. Shout out to my amazing moderators in here. Akicha, Ellie, Cherie, Elisa. Y'all are amazing. Join the Discord. Elisa, I don't know if she's in here, but she helps run the Discord. Shout out to all my amazing friends in here. JE Main Event, thank you for being here. C-Bar, you're amazing. Jessica Woodard, appreciate you. And other people, if you are routine watchers of the live stream and maybe you don't comment a whole lot, but you're here, I appreciate every single one of you. Jay Harrison, I appreciate your dedication. Oh, thank you. I really, someone says, can I be real? You're saying things you do doesn't help the, okay, then you use a rude thing. You're too zesty. Oh, you're too zesty. I'm gonna take that as I'm not zesty enough, okay? You're also using the wrong your, so that's really showing your intelligence. That all being said, no. I appreciate it, but no. People have told me that I am too gay or too zesty my whole life. Absolutely not. How if I were to say that you're too normal? Or you're too normal sounding? Or you're too pedestrian? How would you feel? How would you feel if I said that you're too straight? Like, dude, your attempt at an insult really just motivates me even more. So the fact that there are people who will take that opportunity to try to do a low blow, oh honey, sweetheart, I'm a gay man from the South. You think that bothers me? Oh honey, no. Oh honey, no. So I'm gonna take that as I need to be more zesty. Anyway, I love all of you. I'm gonna skedaddle. Be on the lookout for my latest video. If you enjoyed the live stream, please smash that subscribe button. Just remember that you are beautiful, you are loved, you are valid, you are strong, and you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything or the algorithm ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much. Bye!